back in Chicago. Josh Lewin with Steve Stone, and, well, a rare 11 a.m. start Chicago time.
Well, for whatever reason, they decided to play a late game last night, an early game today, and it is very warm here. And if the fans are not reeling from the heat, they're reeling from the announcement that Joe McIlvaine is no longer the general manager. If you missed it yesterday, it's Steve Phillips now, and under the new regime, the Mets 0-1, thanks to the Cubs breaking their 4-game losing streak. And Mark Grace is a big part of that, Josh, because he's been red hot lately.
He's been sizzling. You check out these numbers. Doug Glanville, a nice story, too, along with Grace. Things really starting to happen at the top of the order. Glanville is getting on, McRae is getting on, and now Grace actually has some guys to drive in.
And Terry Mulholland, who has been the victim of lack of support this year, probably looking for some runs today. Mulholland has been throwing the ball very well, although you'd never know it by his record. He's opposed by big Mark Clark, who also is throwing the ball well and has a winning record. And the Mets dropped the game in the wild card race last night. They're chasing Florida. They've got some teams creeping up on them, but the Florida Marlins look awfully tough.
You mentioned Terry Mulholland pitching for the Cubs, obviously, today. How much longer do you figure that's going to happen? His name is in just about every trade rumor in America right now.
Well, I think because you have till July 31st to hold on, Josh, I don't think they're in any hurry to move him. He threw the ball so very well last time out, and every time he does throw the ball well, probably his price tag goes up somewhat. Everybody in the Kurt Schilling race to see who gets him, and then they'll filter on down after that. It's kind of like a #1 draft choice. You find out what he gets, and then everybody falls in line after that, and I think they're waiting for the Schilling trade. Then they see what exactly the value is of the players that they have. So they've still got some time, and the Cubs will be exploring every avenue.
And the Cubs, who have won their last 3 games played here at Shea Stadium, go at it again today or this morning, depending on where you're watching this ball game. It is the Cubs and the Mets on a scorcher in New York, coming right up. Josh Lewin with Steve Stone. Glad to have you with us this morning. And don't forget, the Cubs are right back at Wrigley to start a 6-game homestand tomorrow. It'll be Harry and Steve telling you about the Cubs and the Rockies. But first, the Cubs and the Mets, and a chance for Jim Riggleman's club to sweep the Mets here in a 2-game series. The all-sport lineups featuring Doug Glanville at the top. He is a 300 hitter now after a couple of doubles yesterday. Brian McRae in the 2 spot, then Sammy Sosa third. And Sammy Sosa has done a little bit of hitting against the Mets starter Mark Clark. Mark Grace is at first base. Ryan Sandberg back in the lineup at second. Tyler Houston getting a chance to catch today. Kevin Ory at third. Ray Sanchez at short. And finally the pitcher, Terry Mulholland.
Pretty much a completely different lineup for Bobby Valentine today as the New York Mets take the field this way. Gilkey, Everett, and Ochoa left to right in the infield. Alfonso, Alexander, Lopez, and Husky at first, with a battery of former Cub Todd Pratt and Mark Clark on the mound. It's the shock troops today, and 2 of the biggest Cub killers this year not in the lineup. John Olerud and Todd Hundley will not play against Terry Mulholland, and I am certain Terry's not going to miss them.
No Lance Johnson, no Ray Ordonez for the Mets today. And these New York Mets, after kind of a mediocre April, they have been very good. You see the batting average has been fluffed up a full 33 points. They're scoring more runs, and they're winning more games.
Well, one of the big reasons why this team is doing what it's doing is the man you're looking at, John Olerud, is hitting the ball very well, and the resurgence of Carlos Baerga. They took a lot of heat here in New York in the front office when Baerga was acquired from Cleveland because he came over and did virtually nothing. But now Baerga is swinging the bat well. Unfortunately for him, he does not hit the ball from the right side, so he's not playing today. And in the wild card race, the Mets dropped one yesterday. And behind a 1-hitter, the Florida Marlins and Kevin Brown have extended their lead to 3.5 games over the Mets, with the Expos being shut out by Kurt Schilling 4 games back.
Jeremy Gonzalez did the job for the Cubs yesterday, raised his record to 7-2, and that's for a Cub team that is 39-55 overall. And Jeremy Gonzalez wasn't even with this team on as recently as Memorial Day, Stoney, but it's 7-2. Do we start talking about Jeremy Gonzalez as a guy that's in the Rookie of the Year picture?
Well, I think, one, he's definitely in the Rookie Pitcher of the Year, and also if he continues throwing the ball as well as he has, then he does have a bona fide shot for Rookie of the Year. I mean, if you can pencil in 12-13 wins this year for a man who started as late as he did season-wise, you'd have to say that he would get a lot of consideration, especially when you factor in the way the Cubs have played this year. And yet he has been much better than the ball club, 5 games over 500. Now, last night, Josh, he said he just didn't feel comfortable on the mound. He talked to Charlie Williams early. They spread out some drying compound on the front of the mound, but he said it felt slippery out there to him, and he had some problems. He didn't give up many hits, but he did give up a couple of bombs to Olerud and then a bomb to Hundley. It was a 2-run double. But yesterday, an odd outing for him, giving up 5 runs in 5 innings, but still the bullpen for the Cubs made it hold up, and he got the win.
And the thing that you have to appreciate about Jeremy Gonzalez, and yeah, he was saying after the game that he never did quite feel in sync, but Gonzalez isn't one of these guys who, as he's struggling out there, is going to look down at the mound and stand there with his hands on his hips and glower out at anybody and try to blame the circumstances for what he's doing. He I think did his best to shrug it off yesterday. Didn't have great stuff. He walked 5 guys, but he bulldogged his way through it, and he hung around long enough for the win.
And he said really that's a situation where the maturation process comes into it. And if you can believe that a 22-year-old is all that mature, I believe he is from when the Cubs signed him as a 16-year-old. He said early in his career in the minor leagues, if anything went wrong, a little something in the infield, maybe somebody didn't make a play or perhaps the mound situation, then he would let it upset him and he would lose the game. He's not like that anymore, and although he didn't feel comfortable, he didn't lose the game, and I think that's what you have to appreciate about him, his composure, what he's done for this ball club, coming up in the throes of some terrible struggles by the Cubs, and Gonzalez has put all that out of his mind and gone out there and thrown the ball very well.
An exciting ball game last night, and there was the offensive catalyst, Doug Glanville, who grew up just on the other side of one of these many bridges here in New York City. Grew up in Teaneck, New Jersey, and had a very full pass list here to watch him yesterday. Couple of doubles for Doug Glanville.
What you like about Glanville is that he can usually put the barrel of the bat on the ball, and it doesn't matter if it's inside or outside. We saw his doubles as diverse as they could be. One was an inside fastball. It was taken down the third base line into left field. Then when Reynoso tried to stay away in a clutch situation, he doubled up the right field line. So he's shown the ability to make contact. He certainly can make things happen when he gets on base, and the Cubs have been a much better team with Glanville at the top of the order.
Todd Hundley with the afternoon off, and that is a rare day off for Todd Hundley. His dad, we were talking about this a little bit last night, as you see Todd Pratt on his way out as a catcher today. Again, Hundley sitting, and that's rare. Randy Hundley, same story when he played with the Cubs for all those years. I mean, this was a guy that year in, year out would give you 150 ball games, and for a catcher, that's pretty unbelievable.
Well, I think you'll probably see Todd Hundley before the day is over. We're assuming that this is going to be a close ball game. You got 2 pretty good pitchers on the mound, and Todd Hundley's certainly available for pinch hitting. As you know, his strong side is the left side. 18 of his 20 home runs have come as a left-hand hitter. And this ball club, a lot of people believe, is overachieving. Most people didn't give the Mets a chance this year, but here they are, 9 games over 500. They are in the thick of the wild card race. They are going to get a couple of their pitchers back, notably Pete Harnisch. That could come in handy because Armando Reynoso came up with tendonitis in his shoulder last night. They're not sure what they're going to get out of him, so Harnisch could come back at the right time. As you take a look at Mark Clark, now we say his best pitch is his fastball. Mark Clark isn't overpowering, but he'll have to throw 2 different kinds of fastball, the 4-seam and the 2-seam, to try to combat the Cub hitters. He's got a pretty good curveball. He does change speeds. He mixes things up. Normally, he's got very good control. In fact, that's probably his best ally. So he doesn't have quite the move, however, of Armando Reynoso. And the Cub running game, should they get on with their speed merchants today, should be in high gear, as opposed to last night when you had Hundley and when you had Reynoso. Today, the combination of Pratt and Clark is very runnable for the Cubs.
Bob Apodaca, the pitching coach for the Mets, says really the same things that Phil Regan said about Mark Clark when Regan was Clark's pitching coach in Cleveland. Clark just kind of a blue-collar major league starter. He's quality, but nothing too dazzling. Just a guy with a good sinking fastball who will get a lot of ground ball outs.
And he originally came up with the St. Louis Cardinals, and he's made the rounds since then. Acquired by the Cleveland Indians in '93, and then acquired by the Mets in March 31st of '96 in exchange for Ryan Thompson and Reed Cornelius. Turned out to be another pretty good trade for Joe McIlvaine. And when you look around this ball club and realize Joe McIlvaine was unseated here in New York, you realize just how good he was in making trades, rebuilding the Mets. When he came back for his second stint with the Mets, this was a decimated team, and Joe McIlvaine did a fine job here. He's a quality man, and there really is not too many bad things you can say about him. He did a good job. He worked pretty hard here in New York. They felt it was time for a change, but I know, talking with Fred Wilpon, he didn't want to dwell on the negatives of Joe McIlvaine. He wanted to dwell on the positives of Steve Phillips. I'm sure that Joe McIlvaine, should he choose not to accept the Mets' offer to continue employment, won't be out of a job too long. He's a good, solid baseball man and a great evaluator of talent.
Ready to go from Shea. Doug Glanville is in there, and he takes a look at a strike from the right-hander. Temperatures expected to get up into the mid-90s in the New York area today, and the requisite humidity here in Queens, so good day to sweat.
And Clark has never had much luck against the Cubs. 1-4 lifetime with a 4.29 ERA in 8 career games.
Loop towards the alley, and Doug Glanville, who doubled twice yesterday, is all the way out to second base right here. He's got a double again.
Well, Doug Glanville did something that I'm kind of surprised, because he very rarely does it, and that's he conceded the double. He'd have had a triple on this ball if he was running hard. Glanville usually goes as hard as he can, but for whatever reason he breaks it down between first and second. And when Ochoa fell down, Glanville, quite frankly, should be standing at third. You see him break it down right there, and he just gave it up too soon. A lesson for all you youngsters: run as hard as you can every chance. You'll get the extra base on occasion. And we'll isolate on Ochoa, who just plain falls down.
Now Brian McRae with a push bunt, and he is going to be safely across first base, and here comes Glanville. He's safe. Doug Glanville, making up for the lack of hustle to second, goes all the way from second to home on an infield hit by Brian McRae.
Well, Brian McRae has comfortably adjusted to the number 2 spot, knowing that he had to move along Glanville. He gets him home, and we'll watch it again. This is pure hustle on the part of Glanville. Todd Pratt can't hold on to it. Glanville called safe at the plate by Bruce Fremming. The Cubs on top after 2 hitters, 1-0.
Boy, that's a quick way to win back the respect of your manager. Scoring from second base on a bunt.
Well, I can't believe that the Mets, seemingly still asleep from last night, let that ball just sit with Doug Glanville at third base. They got to know that he's got blazing speed, and yet when the ball got away, nobody went to get it, and Glanville took advantage of it. How many times you see an RBI bunt with a man at second?
At third, it's Alfonso, and a nice play to retire Sammy Sosa. I guess the answer is not very often. And well, this season started. Remember the first game of the year in Florida? There was a bunt double.
Let's watch the McRae play again. A heads-up play by Brian McRae, knowing that he had to move him along. Now they give an error on the play to Louis Lopez, allowing Glanville to score. Todd Pratt can't hold on to the throw. The throw was high anyway. I don't think he'd have had him. And we'll watch the last play by Alfonso, who's the best this year defensively. And he makes a great play, cutting down Sosa at first.
So again on the McRae play, it's a bunt single, and then the error on Lopez allowing Glanville to score. He never stopped running coming around third. Mark Grace looking at a 1-ball 1-strike count.
Last night the Cubs broke out on top 2-0 in the first inning, looking for more of the same here today.
Whack down the right field line. Mark Grace is going to run around for a while. Brian McRae comes in to score. It's a double for Grace, 2-0. And a little flashback to yesterday. Same score in the same spot.
Batting fifth.
And Mark Grace,
second baseman,
now hitting .322 for the season.
Driving in run number 48. And using Doug Glanville as a catalyst at the top, Brian McRae has become more effective in the 2 spot. Consequently, Mark Grace is driving in many more runs. And the Cubs up a pair against Mark Clark. And they got a man on the mound who's been pretty stingy in Terry Mulholland. So things looking good for a 2-game sweep of this abbreviated series.
Ryan McRae forcing his way on base. That's been a big part of the Cubs starting to win the last couple of weeks. Of course, the win streak was interrupted. Just a brutal homestand. The Cubs going 1-5, losing a lot of games late. Almost let one get away yesterday with the bullpen hanging on. Cubs won at 6-5. Sandberg's ground ball, the second out of the inning. On the play, Mark Grace moves to third.
Now the Cubs know today there's no way that they can pick up any ground because there's 2 teams tied for first. So what they would love to do is win this one and give them some momentum coming home for what looks to be a pretty tough homestand against a very hungry Colorado team that's fallen on some terribly hard times with a decimated pitching staff. And then of course the Braves come to town, and there are seats available for that homestand, and it should prove to be a good one. We've got Larry Walker chasing 400 when the Rockies come to town.
And Larry Walker yesterday, as the Rockies lost yet again, he went 1 for 4, so his average now is at .404. And Tony Gwynn at .397. That is amazing at this point in the season to be hitting .397 and you're in second place in hitting.
Well, that's going to prove to be a great race. We talked about the home run race in the American League, and when we went off the air, Tino Martinez had the lead, hitting 2 home runs and running his total of 33. When we woke up this morning, Mark McGwire hit 2 home runs, running his total of 34.
Tyler Houston just misses down the first base line. It's 2-1. There's that home run derby. McGwire and Griffey, knew was going to be there too. Griffey's been stalled right around that 28 to 30 range now for a while. And Tino Martinez with the 33. Fastball up around his head. Tyler Houston now with a 2-ball 2-strike count.
Well, unfortunately, since Tyler's come back from the disabled list, that's one of the things he's been doing. I think he's over anxious, trying to get back in the groove, but he's swinging at a lot of high fastballs. And that's not a pitch he can handle. So the Cubs looking to pad their lead here in the first inning. Tyler's got to lay off the high heat.
Squirting outside, and now a full count with Kevin Orie on deck.
Last time out, Mark Clark lost to the Atlanta Braves. That was the only game they lost in that series. He went 6 innings, gave up 5 hits and 4 earned runs.
Outside, and Tyler Houston is on. Orie will become the 7th man to hit in this first inning.
Batting 7.
Getting out quickly, a big thing for the Cubs this year. They've gone 23-9 when they score even just 1 run in the first inning. For Terry Mulholland to have this kind of run support already. He hasn't even taken the mound yet.
Orie's going to start seeing fastballs inside. He's shown the National League hitters that he's got pretty good plate coverage away, and he's got a lot of base hits to right and right center. So you'd expect now that they're going to start coming inside somewhat. That's where Kevin can show his power. If he can get the head of the bat out, he'll start hitting some home runs, but they're going to stay away here.
Kevin Orie has had a good time hitting against these New York Mets this year. Remember, it was Kevin's base hit that got the Cubs off that 0-14 losing streak right here at Shea. He had the winning hit. Also had his first big league home run against the Mets back at Wrigley.
And don't count Kevin out of the Rookie of the Year race quite yet, because I believe he's got the ability to turn it on. That batting average is hovered in the 270s. If he gets a hot streak and gets it up in the high 280s, low 290s, he's got a shot.
Fastball buzzed just a bit inside, 1-2.
Todd Pratt looking over in the dugout. I think they might be calling some pitches. He's also telling the middle infielders what to do in case Tyler Houston takes off.
Runners at the corners, 2 runs already in. Right back to Mark Clark, and that'll do it. But 7 men hit in an inning that featured Doug Glanville racing in from second on a bunt. Cubs 2 and the Mets coming up. And Husky has hit Mulholland okay. Carl Everett, Alex Ochoa, Todd Pratt, Luis Lopez, and Mark Clark.
And the all-sport defense for Jim Riggleman's Cubs. Glanville, McRae, and Sosa left to right. Ori Sanchez, Sandberg, and Grace in the infield. And a battery of Tyler Houston. And 6 and 9, Terry Mulholland. And there you look at the numbers. A good ERA. Great walk-to-strikeout ratio. And last start, he was absolutely brilliant. Looking for more of the same today.
What a duel he was in with Andy Bennis last time out. That game teetering into the 12th inning before it was decided. And Terry Mulholland with among the worst run support in the National League. He has pitched so much better than that 6 and 9 record would show you. The ERA of 3.5. He hardly walks anybody.
And stolen bases are not an issue with Terry. But Manny Alexander leading off played great when Ray Ordonez went down at shortstop, and now he's getting an opportunity today again.
Well, one of the things with the Mets is they have more than kept their heads above water here this year. They've had a lot in the way of injuries. You talked about the pitching problems that they've had. Line shot, and Mulholland the juggling grab for the first out of the bottom of the first inning.
Batting second, number 13, third baseman Eduardo Alfonso.
Terry's going to get it right there on the heel of the glove.
When it comes back to you, you usually don't know how hard it's hit. This one not hit all that hard, and Terry Mulholland, a very good fielding pitcher, able to take care of it himself.
Now here's another guy that's been in the middle infield mix and also is playing third base as he is today, Eduardo Alfonso.
He's playing third base better than anybody in the National League, which is somewhat surprising. But Alfonso, probably the best defensive player you've never heard about. He is a wizard with the glove, and we've seen a couple of outstanding plays.
To right field, Sammy Sosa right there. Now Alfonso has stepped in and stepped it up. Manny Alexander, as you mentioned, and when he was hurt, Luis Lopez had to go in there and win him a couple of ball games. So they go pretty deep, this New York team.
Well, the Mets are not going to win the wild card unless Bernard Gilkey starts turning it on and reverts to the Gilkey of last year. He has struggled mightily this year.
Off speed for a strike, Bernard Gilkey. You're talking about a 105-point drop in his batting average.
But it's run production that's really hurt the Mets. Here was a man who was right in the middle of everything last year, one of the best clutch hitters in the league. And this year he got off to a terrible start. He's just now starting to right the ship.
Gilkey played 11 years in the Cardinals system before last season. 5.5 years in the minors for them. 5.5 years for what was his hometown team. Gilkey out of University City High School in St. Louis.
This is a good matchup for Bernard Gilkey. He's always seen the ball very well against Terry Mulholland.
Very high chopper. Kevin Ory's got to hurry. He unloads, and he's got him. Down go the Mets in order. And at the end of one, it is still the Cubs 2, New York nothing.
I know, Josh, that you've taken a cab or two to the ballpark. Have you ever told the cab driver, take me to the ballpark? Probably you have.
I think I've done that.
Well, that's what happened with Arnie Harris, Mandy Cohn, Kathy Grimmie today when they left early. Arnie told them to take me to the ballpark, and the cab driver did just that.
Which
Only
ballpark?
It was Yankee Stadium in the Bronx.
Ray Sanchez, a slow roller. And that's the first out. That is
so an hour and a half later, they arrived here at Shea after making that detour. Actually, they wanted to see the home of Hideki Irabu and George Steinbrenner's palace over there in the Bronx. Got a good look at the ballpark, realized that indeed they hadn't changed the facade of Shea Stadium, and so they hightailed it over here.
Cab driver did what Bobby Bonilla suggested to those reporters years ago. I'll show you the Bronx. Terry Mulholland down in the count 0-1. Well, let's make sure that Arnie doesn't get in the cab today and say, take us to the airport, because there's 3 of those. That is bus day here at Shea Stadium. Mulholland down on strikes. Actually, a lot of kids here today for the early start. Thus the packed parking lot full of school buses. They're also touting this as Senior Citizens Day.
And all the youngsters in attendance today after the game get to run the bases down on the field, so they're anxiously awaiting that. And with 94-degree temperatures, it should be quite an experience.
Strike 1 to Doug Glanville. Cubs a 6-5 winner last night, if you missed it. Boy, Colorado, they're going to come in one hurt puppy to Wrigley. They have lost 12 out of 13 now. Edged out 2-1 by Atlanta yesterday.
And they have the pleasure of facing Greg Maddux this evening in Atlanta.
Oh, perfect.
That's very special.
Well, it'll be Jamie Wright on the mound for the Rockies tomorrow. Against Steve Traxel. Jamie Wright with an 8.51 earned run average. Glanville waves at the sinker. And it's a 1-2-3 inning for Mark Clark. Nothing across for the Cubs. Husky, Everett, and Ochoa coming up for the New Yorkers after this.
Both these men have athlete's foot, but only one used the soothing cure. Prescription strength Desinex. It calms the itching and cools the burning while it heals. Got athlete's foot.
For the Mets. And a very good morning. If you're just joining us, the early start today. We were playing, what, 13, 14 hours ago. The night game last night and a Cub 1-run victory.
Husky's always been very tough against Terry Mulholland, so I'm sure he'd like to keep the ball low and away from him. He hits anything up high.
Drilled to left field. That's hooking, carrying, and it's going to bounce off the wall and over the wall.
Well, Husky continues to be very tough against Terry Mulholland, and that curveball was inner portion of the plate where Husky could drop the head of the bat on it, and he crushed it to left field. Watch it again. Terry got it low into the inner portion, and that's not where you want to go with Butch Husky, and he reminds you of that by rifling a double.
Tying man comes up. It is Carl Everett.
He contributed mightily to the Cub win last night by getting picked off second base with nobody out in the 8th.
Yeah, one of the tabloid newspapers here in New York today spelled his name in the headline with a hyphen in there, E, and then the hyphen for the base running error.
Everett has done a nice job for Bobby Valentine, forcing his way into the starting lineup most days. However, a much better hitter from the left side. 7 of his 9 home runs have come as a left-hand hitter, where he's hitting .282, hitting .264 as a righty, with just 2 home runs and 5 driven in.
On the ground to third, Kevin Ory holds the runner and throws out Everett.
It's a real bat at bat for Carl Everett.
And he wasn't exactly sprinting out of the box either.
Trying to hit the ball to the right side, or should have been. Instead, he grounds it to Ory, and Husky has to stay right there.
If you missed it yesterday, the Florida Marlins got a one-hitter from Kevin Brown. Raul Mondesi's single in the 5th, the only hit. And that start for Kevin Brown following a game in which he got clobbered time before. When Kevin Brown had his no-hitter earlier this year, that followed a game where he gave up 12 hits. And that 529-foot home run to Andres Galarraga. So the pattern that has been established now for Kevin Brown is every time he gets absolutely ripped, it's going to come back and either get some history or some near history.
Well, a lot like Butch Husky, Alex Ochoa has handled Terry Mulholland pretty well. He had a big home run against Atlanta his last start.
Alan Ochoa, a guy who really just burst into the mix here for the Mets when he came over last year. He hit for the cycle in his 4th ever big league ball game. This time in the hole for Sanchez. Grace trying to tag as he goes by, and he gets it done.
Well, that is the only time that you should slide into first base, and preferably feet first. If you're running down the line and paying attention, you can see the first baseman have to shift his weight and go up in the air, but Ochoa wasn't, and he actually ran into the tag. A good play by Grace. If you're sliding, there's nothing for Grace to tag. As it is, he got him on the back. Mark Hirschbeck on the call, and the Cubs get a break on the bad throw by Sanchez, but the fine play by Mark Grace. We talk about that head first slide into first base. Do it when the man is jumping. Don't do it to try to beat a throw.
That always looks like a scrappy play, you know, when a guy hustles in there head first. But I mean, if it was such a good play, and if it made so much sense, you'd see sprinters going head first across the finish line in a 40-yard dash, and you don't see that. Cecil Fielder with kind of an odd dive into home plate the other day, and he is now on the disabled list.
He's going to be lost for 8 weeks, which is probably the entire season at this point. Papers here were full of excellent advice for Willie Randolph about sending Cecil on a double, trying to score from first base. And Cecil will wind up most likely lost for the year. He's got a chance to come back, but it's doubtful at this point.
Two balls, 2 strikes to Todd Pratt. Of course, it had looked for a while, or for a couple days anyway, that the Yankees had traded it for a right-handed slugger that could have stepped in there, but they said no thanks to the Greg Vaughn deal after the physical didn't pan out.
Cookie Rojas, a former Cub, fine infielder, former Philadelphia Philly, spent a lot of time with the California Angel organization. Now he finds himself here in New York. Looks like one more curveball. That might be it for Pratt.
Gets into it to left field. Doug Glanville comes up throwing. Houston diving across, and the tag, it doesn't get there. It's an RBI for Todd Pratt.
Todd Pratt has refound his stroke here in New York, and Terry Mulholland makes a mistake with the curveball. This is the only one in the sequence he doesn't get down. This one comes rolling right up in the eyes of Pratt. He drives in his 7th run. Here comes Husky lumbering around. The throw was there in plenty of time, but it was off the mark. It pulled Tyler Houston up away from the plate, and Husky goes around him with a good slide reminiscent of the Ryne Sandberg slide at the plate in Wrigley Field. Only he did it seemingly in slow motion.
Now Luis Lopez. And a 2-1 ball game. Todd Pratt 8 for 20 since he's come up.
And they're giving Husky a little air. And bear in mind, you got a very weak hitting pitcher on deck. Clark hitting .028. So be careful with Lopez.
Jumps ahead of him, 2 strikes. One-time Cub, Todd Pratt. Pratt was in the role that Brian Dorsett filled last year, the backup catcher that hung around for about 6 weeks.
And he didn't hit like he's hitting now when he was a Cub. He's got a couple of home runs, 7 runs batted in very limited action. But he swung the bat very well for the Mets.
Well, his very first at bat as a Met was a home run on the 4th of July. The score. Cubs entering play today. 8.5 games out. Houston, the hot team in the division right now. They've won 3 in a row, 7 out of 10. Lopez down on strikes. And Mulholland out of the inning. He gives up a run on a couple of hits. That run coming in on the close play at the plate. On to the 3rd. Cubs 2, Mets 1.
Kids, call 1-888-CUBS-FAN and become a member of the Halo Chicago Cubs Kids Club. Join and receive an official membership card along with a Cubs cap, sunglasses, calculator, notebook, pen, 2 tickets to a Cubs game, and much more. That's the Halo Cubs Kids Club at 888-CUBS-FAN. Call and join today.
I think I just saw Arnie Harris's cap pull up off the Van Wyck. Well, it is a very hot, very humid afternoon in New York. I know it's a hot and humid morning back in Chicago. The Cubs are coming back right after this ball game, getting set for the Rockies, who are in for a weekend series starting tomorrow.
2:20 game tomorrow. Leadoff man, Josh will have for you at 2 o'clock right here on WGN.
There you have it. Cubs and the Rockies. It'll be Trexel against Jamie Wright. Boy, the Rockies lost 12 out of 13. They're now 7 games under 500. Ryan McRae all the way ahead in the count here, 3-0. The Rockies only 2 games over 500 at home. That was their whole story the last couple of years.
What's been pretty nice to see from Brian McRae is the fact that he is really working the count long almost every at bat as a 2-hitter. And that's something that you wish he would have done as a leadoff hitter, but for whatever reason he was in the throes of a terrible slump. He got over anxious. Now it seems like the pressure's off him in the 2 spot and he's taking many more walks.
Takes another one. 14 walks in his last 10 ball games, and well, you're right, Stoney. It would have been great to see that kind of patience when he was in that leadoff spot most of the year. The Nissan trivia question: the last Met to lead the league in stolen bases. That's a good question.
I'll say Mookie.
I was going to say Mookie too, but
you can't say Mookie.
I know I can now.
You can say Cleon Jones.
I could, but I don't think I'm going to.
How about Rusty Staub?
Nope. Guess I got to go Hojo, but I know that's not right.
Oh, it's very possible. Hojo was very fast.
Well, he had the 30-30 year.
Well, it could have been a down year in stolen bases.
That's what I'm hoping for. Definitely was not Rusty Staub.
Ron Reynolds?
Nope.
Ken Boswell?
Stop it.
Wayne Garrett? See, I'm giving you a lot of choices.
Well, but they're all terrible, though.
Well, of course.
I want a fast Met. I want that blazing speed that LeGrand Orange showed you when he tracked down your drive at this ballpark 20 years ago.
Oh, that was a sad day.
How can Rusty Staub track down one of your fly balls?
It was a laser, too. I think he was playing me right in back of the second baseman.
He made a fine running catch coming in.
Well, Sammy has got to right the ship, and if he does, the Cubs could have a very promising homestand. Sammy's got to start swinging the bat better and keep the guys away from jamming him. That's one of the big things that has really hurt Sammy. He's seeing a lot of sliders away, but he always sees those. But what's happened, for whatever reason, is he's getting pitches that he was handling before, and he's getting jammed with those pitches. If he can keep guys out of his kitchen, he can turn on some fastballs.
Lopez didn't have it and will turn not even one. He was thinking about the double play and had McRae kind of honing in on him. And the Cubs get a break. 2 on, nobody out.
Well, that should go as another error on Lopez. And he has shown here in the early going that he's had some problems. Watch it again as Lopez has a chance to be charged with his second error of the game, and I can't see how he's going to avoid that except for an early Christmas present. Well,
wow.
He got it.
Merry Christmas.
Sammy will definitely take it.
Well, that'll fluff up the ERA of Mark Clark a little bit if Mark Grace can come through, and Grace has been coming through a lot the last few weeks. Another double play opportunity. This time they get it. Grace going after the first pitch. And Alexander turns it slickly to Lopez and then on to Husky.
And now it's up to Rhino to try to make something out of this inning as the Cubs have runners at first and second, nobody out, as we've seen many times this year. And Mark Grace grounds into the easy 6-4-3. Maybe Rhino can pick him up. Cubs have been scoring a lot of runs with 2 outs lately.
Sandberg with a history of success against Mark Clark, 6 out of 13 in his career. Though he bounced out in the first inning. High bouncer. Alfonso unloads and a Husky picks it out of the dirt. Nice play. An inning that started very promisingly fizzles on the Cubs, and going to the bottom of the third, still 2-1.
This portion of Chicago Cubs baseball on WGN is brought to you by the Learning Channel. Adventures for your mind.
A race against time, a forsaken forest. She's a witch. The Adventures of Sinbad. Sunday at 5 on WGN.
It is Mark Clark to lead it off for the Mets in the bottom of the third. Cubs up 2-1. And Terry Mulholland, I don't think, has to pitch around Mark Clark. He has exactly as many hits as the musical group Dexy's Midnight Runners. 1.
But he has 4 total bases on that hit because it was a home run. 1 for 36 this year.
Homered off Tim Wakefield. And he crushed it, as a matter of fact. Look out. I mean, you and me. That's right back at us. Sorry, Mark. We'll get off your case right now. Two balls, 2 strikes to the Met starting pitcher and a downstate Illinois native. Clark from Bath, Illinois. Originally, there's the 3-ball, 2-strike count now. Mulholland to Clark.
Well, you know, Terry's really unhappy with himself because he very rarely takes a trip off the mound. He knows that Clark can't hit, and he's trying to just throw a fastball right down the middle. Unbelievable that one of the great control pitchers would walk the pitcher. In fact, the Cubs did it twice last night. Jeremy Gonzalez in the 3rd and the 5th walked both Corey Lytle and Armando Reynoso, and both of them scored.
So the last 3 pitchers that have faced the Chicago Cubs have all walked. And Terry Mulholland, this is incredible. He had walked only 17 of the last 410 batters he had faced going into that at bat with Clark.
You must have saw the replay of the Wakefield at bat.
Now Manny Alexander, and there's a strike to him. Let's get back to that Nissan trivia question. The last Met to lead the league in stolen bases. Lay it on us. Wow, Willie Mays in 57. How is that possible? Obviously wasn't with the Mets.
Not in 57, no. If it was, he was playing alone, and that's why he stole so many bases.
That's a trick question. Yeah, stolen bases are easy when nobody's on the field and the team hasn't been invented yet.
Once again, Arnie Harris has pulled a question that has absolutely no answer. And when he gives you the answer, it has no relevance to the question. Thanks, Arn.
Hey, Rocky, watch me pull a rabbit out of my hat. Whoops, wrong hat.
We'll figure out the answer to that and get back to you folks.
Maybe that cab driver has an answer. Yeah, I'll take you to the ballpark, sure. Oh, and also tell the broadcasters that Willie Mays was the last Met to lead the league in stolen bases, and he did it in the 50s. Manny Alexander lined back to Mulholland last time and hobbles away here. The count holding it 1-2.
Well, the Giants were in town. Mays was playing for them. They were at the Polo Grounds, and he stole 38. Well, then a few years later, the Mets came into existence, and we're still checking on if one of them ever did lead the league.
Fouled back into the seat. Still 1-2 to Alexander. Manny Alexander with a little bit of speed. He's going to need it here. Sanchez turns it. And Alexander's across.
It was a throw by Mulholland that stopped that double play. It was doubtful if they would have been able to double Alexander, although he has grounded into 3 double plays this year. However, this low throw made it impossible. And once again, Terry Mulholland most unhappy with himself. This hasn't been his most pleasant inning because you've got a chance at 2, but not with that throw. And Alexander beats it easily. Now you have the speed burner at first base. I think Terry would like to pick him off just to get a little gratification out of this 3rd inning. Only 1 stolen base against Terry all year long, and that's when nobody was covering second. Other than that, when the Cubs have covered second, nobody's stolen.
Not even Willie Mays, who actually did play for the Mets in 72 and 73.
I was with the Giants when they traded Willie Mays here to the Mets. At the time, Horace Stoneham wanted to ensure Willie's financial future, and the Mets could do that. He made sure the contract was in place before he traded him.
Well, and the thing about the early 1970s Mets, that was not exactly a team with speed. That 1973 National League champion Wayne Garrett was their stolen base leader with 6.
I told you to pick him. Well, I said he was a speed merchant.
6? Mm-hmm. Popped up. Mark Gray scopes it out for the 2nd out of the inning. Would you believe Dave Kingman led the New York Mets in steals one year? 1975. We're getting an explanation, by the way, on what the Nissan trivia question was supposed to have been. Willie Mays, the last New York National League player to lead the...
In the 50s, who hit right-handed and later went to the Hall of Fame with over 600 home runs. Just get that one a little more specific.
Well, see, that one I would have gotten. Gilkey crushes one to left center field. Brian McRae moving back. Twirls, and he makes the catch. Well, not exactly a conventional route to that baseball, but he got it. And the Cubs still have the lead at the end of 3. Cubs 2. And the Mets 1.
We've located the last Met to lead the league in steals, and there he is, dressed as Clayton Moore, the Lone Ranger, looking for Jay Silverheels. And the hat is getting a little too hot for him.
Oh, we showed you all the buses out in the parking lot earlier. Silver is out there somewhere as well. As Tyler Houston rips into one. Carl Everett wandering back for it. There's the first out of the 4th inning. Cubs in front 2-1.
Bernard Gilkey got robbed by Sammy Sosa last night with the bases loaded. It turned out to be a game-saving catch. In this last inning, it was Brian McRae going back to the deepest recesses of left center field and robbing him again. What looked like it was certainly tie, if not put the Mets ahead. That was a bomb, but it held up, and McRae went back and got it.
Kevin Ory looks at the sinker down in the dirt. Ory had a 5-game hitting streak stopped yesterday. Oh, the Cubs pulled it out, a 6-5 win. Let's quickly pause while we have a chance. Time for station identification.
This is America's #1 sports station, WGN-TV, Chicago.
Josh Lewin at Shea Stadium with Steve Stone and a somewhat dazed and confused producer-director Arnie Harris. Two-one coming to Kevin Ory. And he slugs it to center field. Everett racing, and this ball is going to roll around off the wall, and Kevin Ory is taking off for third base. Kevin Ory is going to have himself a one-out stand-up triple.
Well, unlike Brian McRae was able to get back to the wall, Carl Everett didn't exactly go at that one with a lot of gusto. Now, we told you they'd start coming inside a little more. You see Everett stop and start and stop and start. He thought it was out of the park, and it wasn't, and it winds up a triple. So another opportunity for the Cubs to score. That's Kevin Ory picking on a high inside fastball and giving it a long ride. Watch it again. He does not play this one well. But the ball was crushed.
Ory's second triple and the team's 19th of the year. That's as many triples as they had all of last year.
And as many as Ryan Sandberg had by himself in '84.
Right on. Well, the amazing triple stat was from this Mets dugout last year. Lance Johnson had 21 of them.
Well, chronic shin splints have really hurt his speed this year, and Lance is putting together a solid year with the bat again. But the speed numbers way down because of those shin splints.
Sanchez pokes that one foul into the seats. 1-1.
Now the arms in left and right are exceptional. Everett with a decent arm in center. Going to be tough to throw out Ory on a fly ball to center, but you figure if Sanchez does lift it in the air, it'll be to right field, and Alex Ochoa, who's got a gun. Now, he's not always accurate with it, but he can throw it through the wall.
Two balls and a strike to Ray Sanchez. Terry Mulholland on deck. And no offense to Terry, but you really want to see Ray come through here. Runner at third, one out. This is your chance to score the run.
Bernard Gilkey and assists 14. Tied with Sammy Sosa.
Into left center, base hit, 3-1 lead for the Cubs. Sanchez is going to hustle for second. He is safe at second base. Never stopped running. Marco Oliveira said, "You go."
RBI number 12 for Ray Sanchez. Clark gets that fastball in, and Ray rifles it in the gap and then runs on the arm of Bernard Gilkey. He didn't see that graphic we showed you, and Ray is in safely at second base. Watch it again. A decent throw on the wrong side of the bag, and Ray takes advantage by sliding in safely.
Now Mulholland with a runner at second and just one out. Not close on the slider. Well, the Cubs in this game, they've got 3 doubles, they've got a triple, and their 2 singles have not left the infield. Ryan McRae's bunch scored Doug Glanville from second base. To the count to Terry Mulholland. did not go, says Mark Hirschbeck.
Well, last night, the Cubs untied the season series, taking a 4-3 lead against the Mets. And looking like they fully intend to make it 5-3 heading home.
Cubs have won 3 in a row at Shea, going back to that freezing April series that they played here. Cubs' big problem on the road this year has basically been on turf, specifically under domes. Houston and Montreal have just wiped them out. Down goes Mulholland, and he will draw the throw on the dropped third strike. So now runner at second, 2 down, and Glanville's coming up.
You know, credit Terry with a little hustle right there, because Todd Pratt and Butch Husky looked like they didn't intend to throw the ball to first. That ball was in the dirt, and Terry Mulholland, recognizing that, just took off. And we'll watch Pratt for an instant. Todd Pratt looked like he's going to be content to just hold it for a while, and then now that Terry is running, after he made sure that Sanchez wasn't going to do anything at second, he went to first with it.
We talked about Houston. The Astros won again last night. They beat San Francisco 8-1, and Mike Hampton is back, folks. Pitched his second consecutive complete game. Third in his last 4 starts, and if he's going to keep doing that, if Shane Reynolds is healthy, and he did not look great when he faced the Cubs the other day, but
I don't think he had enough rehab starts. Only 1 rehab start after missing close to 6 weeks, and that wasn't near enough. He was not ready.
2 balls, no strikes to Doug Glanville.
But you know that Reynolds is a terrific pitcher and will eventually get that arm strength back. And then Houston could be a force.
Well, they are tied with the Pirates right now for first place. Each team a game over 500. St. Louis 2 games out and 3 games under. Glanville bangs it, but right at second base. Lopez has got it. And the inning ends, but the Cubs do add a run on a couple of hits. A little bit of hustle by Ray Sanchez in that inning, too. Going to the bottom of inning 4. Cubs 3, Mets 1. Mulholland to Husky as we get things going here in the bottom of the 4th inning.
That's where you want to stay on Butch Husky. You keep it down and away, not up and away, because he can get to that and hit it out in center field. Down and away, you're usually in pretty good shape.
Little check swing. That's going to end up down the right field line for a base hit.
When you've got good numbers against a guy lifetime, things like that happen. That fastball was up. Had it been down, Husky would have had some more problems, but the excuse me swing turns into a base hit. He tries to duck out of the way of it and still gets enough to hit it into right field.
There's an old Arabian proverb, something like, you throw a lucky man into the sea, he will come up with a fish in his mouth. And Butch Husky would come up with Shamu. The way he's had it going on the last couple weeks, he's hitting everything, even when he doesn't mean to.
You have a book of those proverbs that perhaps you're thinking of putting out on the market?
Would you buy one?
Oh, absolutely.
I think that's my lead. That's on the. Maybe I'll title the book that. Ground ball to third. It could be 2. Ori Sandberg back to Grace. Not in time. Carl Everett, who last time did not get out of the box quickly, and it cost him. That time he was hustling, and he beats the play at first.
Husky trying to do his best to break up 2, but he really can't get a piece of Sandberg as he comes across the bag. Everett hustling down the line, ties the throw at first base, and they give him the benefit of the call. And now there's still a man at first with a little more speed, but 1 out.
Alex Ochoa almost corkscrewed himself into the ground trying to get out after that one. It's 0-1. We mentioned Houston beat San Francisco yesterday 8-1. Those two teams are at it again this afternoon. Mark Gardner looking for his 10th win for the Giants. And another good rookie, Chris Holt, on the mound for the Astros. He's 7-5.
Ochoa came up out of the Baltimore organization, came over here in the Bobby Bonilla deal. So far hasn't lived up to some of the numbers he put up in the minor leagues with the Orioles.
Well, I love his arm. He's got that cannon in right field.
You always want to have that real good, strong defense in right, though. Prefer that he hit a few more home runs, and so far, although Ochoa is a pretty good line drive hitter and still a very young man, hasn't shown the kind of power they thought he would develop.
Well, credit the Orioles with some good marketing too. I mean, they kind of sold this guy as a potential 30-30 man, and I think if Ochoa ends up a 9-9 kind of player, that the Mets will be very happy with that. Another excuse me swing. That one is foul.
Ochoa has been rumored to go in just about any deal that the Mets might make for some added pitching. And they figure with their outfield situation the way it is, and a young man by the name of Jay Payton, who if he ever does get healthy probably could be a factor. As you look at the new general manager, Steve Phillips, who was the assistant to Joe McIlvaine, and now he's running the show.
Tying man at the plate. We're in the bottom of the 4th inning. On just a blistering hot day here at Shea. San Francisco, even with that loss yesterday, still 3 games ahead of the Dodgers. That was a Cub fan, literally.
Both of those teams, the Giants and the Dodgers, have a torturous road schedule ahead because of the early season scheduling. They played most of the early games at home, and so you have to even them up. And they will both be on the road this second half, where it gets pretty tough to win in whatever league you're in.
Giants have become a very exciting team. They had that 13-run inning the other night in San Diego. And it was in spring training, I believe, or maybe just before that, that the Oakland general manager, Sandy Alderson, he was addressing a banquet in the Bay Area, and he asked the question, what's the only thing more boring than golf on radio? He said the Giants on TV. And kind of a pretty funny line, but I mean, Sandy Alderson's team is 39-57 right now. The Giants are in first place. Down the line, foul ball, foul ball. So a last laugh for Giants fans. Their team at 53-41. And Oakland, despite the heroics of Mark McGwire, 39-57. They're 15 and back of Seattle, which has now got to beat back the Anaheim Angels. The Angels have won 9 straight.
Well, the Giants realize that if they're going to hold off the Dodgers with the Dodgers' superior pitching, that they're going to have to acquire a starting pitcher. And they're trying to do just that as we speak. Brian Sabian and Ned Colletti have been on the phone quite a bit, and there's the Lone Ranger. He's ready to go.
I kind of wish he would.
He's ready to go, we don't know, but he's ready.
That one's skipping up there. Tyler Houston blocks it. It's 1-2 to Alex Ochoa. Boy, that is great symmetry right there. We show you the Lone Ranger, and the organist plays the theme song. Cubs 3, Mets 1. And this one's going to stay fair for Kevin Ory. Across to Mark Grace to barely capture Alex Ochoa. 2 down.
Sunday, July 20th is Sammy Sosa lapel pin day at Wrigley Field. The first 10,000 fans to attend the Cubs Rockies 120 game receive a Sammy Sosa lapel pin Compliments of Kimberly Clark. Gates open at 11:20, so for tickets to games throughout the summer, stop by the Wrigley Field box office, any Ticketmaster Ticket Center, or call 312-831-CUBS.
Sammy had that great running catch yesterday, helping save the win. Now it's Todd Pratt. Formerly of Boston, formerly of Philadelphia, and of course the Cubs.
And the way Pratt is swinging the bat, they'd like to be careful with him. You got Louis Lopez on deck. He's not much of a long ball threat. Pratt has been lately.
Pratt did not play at all last year. He was with the Mariners in spring training. They released him. Nobody else was in the market for a catcher at that time. A little dribbler, and Ory's got to come a long way in. The bare hand pickup, he's got him. Nice job by Kevin Ory. And the leadoff single by Husky. And that's it in the inning for the Mets. No runs in the one hit, no errors, one left at the end of 4. Cubs 3 and the Mets 1.
On today's Discover Card Payback Playback, Sammy Sosa's sensational catch with the bases loaded in the 7th last night saved the game as the Cubs went on to win by 1, 6-5.
It was a good night all the way around in the Cubs organization yesterday in the minor leagues. Iowa a winner, Daytona a winner, Rockford, Williamsport, Mesa. Minor league teams were 5-1 yesterday. Orlando the only loser. Art Clark to Brian McRae, 2-3-4 in the Cub batting order in the 5th, and a 3-1 lead for the Chicago Cubs. Towards the middle, and the smooth Manny Alexander across for the out.
I think there was a little pressure in Baltimore on Manny when he was asked to replace Cal Ripken briefly at shortstop.
Well, what a bizarre situation that was. Manny Alexander was the heir apparent to Cal Ripken. Being the backup to Cal Ripken for all those years, you may as well be unemployed. Cal wasn't going anywhere until Davey Johnson decided, you know what, we got to figure out if Manny Alexander can play one way or the other. Turns out he couldn't really in Baltimore, although he has done a very nice job for these New York Mets. And Manny Alexander, one of the guys he looks up to most in this game. He's at the plate right now for the Cubs. It's his fellow native of San Pedro de Macorís, Dominican Republic, Sammy Sosa.
Waving away at those breaking balls blown away. Not having much luck with him. Maybe Clark will get careless with the fastball.
Well, he has allowed 15 home runs this year. Wind blowing out a little bit at Shea. Little breeze is not the worst thing in the world this afternoon. It started out no wind at all, really. Just a still, stagnant, stuffy day here in Queens. 2 down, Mark Grace coming up.
Join the Cubs and Dodgers on Thursday, July 31st for 70s night at Wrigley Field. The fun begins at 6:15 with a special pregame performance by 70s superstars KC and the Sunshine Band. So get to the park early. Southwest Airlines will also award round-trip tickets to fans in the best 70s outfits. Game time is 7:05. The gates open at 5:05. So for a groovy time, stop by the Wrigley Field box office, any Ticketmaster Ticket Center, or call 312-831-CUBS.
I want to see.
I don't write them. I just read them.
I know, but just the same, I want to see you shake your groove thing, Pally.
I will be the master of ceremonies that particular evening, and it should be fun.
Mark Grace down the line. That's fun. Into the corner it goes, and Mark Grace to second base with another double, his second of this ball game. He had one yesterday to knock in a couple of runs. So a 2-out double, bringing up Ryne Sandberg.
Second baseman Ryne Sandberg.
Butch Husky with no chance. This slider low and in, exactly where Mark Grace wants it, and he does hit it right on the button. No chance for Ochoa. There's Ryne Sandberg with a chance to put the Cubs up by at least 3.
0 for 2 so far is Rhino. Now, do you have your leisure suit picked out? I mean, do you go full bore on this, platform shoes?
What do you mean picked out? I still have them. My clothes are arranged by the decades.
I think Arnie's got a zoot suit he can loan you.
Oh, just another age joke.
Oh, we don't do too many of those. Fly ball to right. And that'll end it. Sure, now you jump to Arnie's defense. Half the ball game is in the books. Cubs 3 and the Mets 1.
This portion of Chicago Cubs baseball on WGN is brought to you by the Discover Card, proud partner of the Smithsonian's 150th anniversary.
Bringing Chicago to your computer. WGN TV on the web. www.wgntv.com.
It is Luis Lopez leading off for the Mets. Josh Lewin and Steve Stone with you at Shea. Great to have you with us this afternoon. Cubs are in front 3-1, and Terry Mulholland's been looking pretty good.
Well, he's got a 2-run lead, and now he's hit the leadoff hitter, and Bruce Fremming got hit also on that one. I think Bruce is feeling it more than Lopez. Tyler Houston is discussing it with Bruce. So the Cubs do have the lead. I think Terry's not used to getting early runs, but he got 2 in the first inning, just like last night. So far, he's making them hold up.
And some production from the top of the order again today, which is a nice thing. Doug Glanville and Mark Grace has been picking up the guys that are getting on.
You'd have to figure Mark Clark is going to bunt. When you're hitting 0-17, you have a tendency to lay down bunts in a situation like this. Actually, he's hitting 0-28. We don't want to short him any because he did draw a base on balls in the third. And fortunately, that didn't amount to anything.
Nice bunt. Grace's only plays to first, gets it over there to Rhino. So Mark Clark with that bingo number batting average and all. He's had a pretty nice day at the plate with the walk and the sacrifice.
Shortstop Manny Alexander.
Manny Alexander now. He is lined back to Mulholland today. He is chopped back to Mulholland today.
It just really helps to face this club without Olerud and Hundley in the lineup. It's a completely different Met team. Odds are if they do stay in the game, it'll be a low-scoring game. That's a lot of punch out of that lineup when you look at the power production of both of those very feared hitters.
Soft stuff outside. 1-0 to Manny Alexander. Olerud, Hundley, Johnson, Ordonez all on the bench today as Alexander sprays this one foul. This is round 2 between Clark and Mulholland this year. The two starting pitchers in today's game also faced each other in April. Clark and the Mets won that one 6-3. Of course, that's when the Cubs were not beating anybody. That was part of the 0-14 start.
And that was Clark's only victory ever against the Cubs.
You've got Clark 1-4 in his career against the Chicago Cubs. Mulholland 2-8 in his career against the Mets. Boy, Terry was super in that game against the Cardinals last Saturday. Gave up a home run to Gary Gaetti, but then again, who didn't in that series? Missing in with that one. 2 balls, 2 strikes to Alexander. Not a guy known for being too patient at the plate.
The reason why Terry has hit 9 men this year is he cuts the fastball inside on the right-handers. And many times, if you hold on to it a little too long, it'll come in and get a piece of the hitter, as it did to Luis Lopez to lead off this inning.
Alexander grew up, as we mentioned, in the Dominican Republic. His house was right across the street from that of Tony Fernandez, one-time Met shortstop. Alexander's favorite player growing up, though, believe it or not, was not from the Dominican Republic. He liked Ozzie Guillen growing up. Some good 2-strike swings here. Alexander just peeling these offerings from Mulholland away.
Well, he got a chance to get out from under the shadow of Cal Ripken and come over here to New York, where he's shown to be more of the player that the Orioles felt he was going to be when they afforded him the opportunity to replace Cal at short. He did a nice job when Ordonez went on the DL for 5 weeks.
Lines that one to left field. Back goes Glanville, and he races it down. Manny Alexander's hit the ball hard 3 times in this ball game, but he's 0 for 3. And here's Alfonso.
One of the reasons why the Cubs won the ball game last night and are leading in this one is that they've completely held down Edgardo Alfonso. And this is one of the real good young hitters in this Met lineup, but he has yet to record a base hit in either of these 2 games. You still have to fear him, though. He usually puts the bat on the ball, and he's usually a tough out. The Cubs have had his number.
Not this time. Into left field, and Cookie Rojas holds the runner at third, wisely so. And hey, they've got Alfonso trapped. There's the tag, and the run will not count. Lopez just now coming home, and a base running mistake by Edgardo Alfonso kills the Mets here in the 5th. A very alert play by Tyler Houston, and the Cubs get Terry Mulholland out of potential trouble. Here's the play by Glanville as Cookie Rojas puts up the stop sign, and Houston right away unloads. Alfonso caught in the hinterlands and is tagged out. It's still 3-1.
This copyright telecast is presented by the authority of the Chicago National League Ball Club, which has right of approval of the announcers and is intended solely for the private and non-commercial use of our audience. Any publication, reproduction, retransmission, or use of the pictures, descriptions, and accounts of this game without the express written consent of the Chicago National League Ball Club is strictly prohibited.
Tyler Houston's ground ball to Luis Lopez was the first out here in the top of inning 6. The Cubs attacking the first pitch against Mark Clark.
We told you earlier, if Kevin Ory started looking inside a little more, that he would be able to generate some power, and he did just that in the 4th, and he tripled.
It is a 3-1 lead for the Cubs. They've been helped out, quite honestly, in this series by some poor decision-making by the New York Mets on the bases.
Well, they've run the bases very poorly, and it certainly has cost them. Not only pickoffs, but that last play took them out of what could have been a fairly promising inning. And we'll show it to you in just a bit.
Ory yanks that one to left field, and another base hit. his second in a row off Mark Clark.
Shortstop
Here's
Ray
today's Ameritech
Sanchez.
playbook, your link to better communication. For all you young players out there, here's the way to get taken out of an inning. The throw comes through, and Cookie Rojas decides to hold up Louis Lopez. Then alertly, Tyler Houston goes to Mark Grace, finding Alfonso off the bag, and a quick tag to stop the run from scoring, and that's your Ameritech playbook.
Yeah, first Alfonso caught off at first base, and then he runs right into the tag, so no chance for Lopez to sneak home from third.
And the key on that play with Sandberg is to come right at Alfonso, so you make sure that you make the tag before Lopez has any chance to score, and the Cubs did it perfectly.
Sanchez, double play ball. Alexander takes it himself and barely gets Sanchez completing the double play. Score at 6-3. No runs, one hit, no errors, and nobody left. To the bottom of the sixth in New York. Cubs 3, Mets 1. Cubs still leading 3-1. It is a 3-4-5 part of the New York Met batting order now. Bottom of the sixth starts with Bernard Gilkey ahead 1-0.
Bernard Gilkey probably figuring he's going to have to hit it out of the park to stop anybody from catching it. As he's had a couple of rockets the last two games. One caught by Sosa, one caught by McRae. Told you he figured it out.
Yeah, well, wow. All the way out. On a 2-0 pitch. He got exactly what he was hoping for, and he took it into the parking lot almost.
Ninth home run, 44th driven in, as Terry Mulholland has given up his 15th home run, and that makes it a one-run game. Fortunately, this one is hit after the Edgardo Alfonso base running mistake. He gets a fastball right down the middle and absolutely tattoos it.
All the way beyond the bleachers, and that fat fastball ends up back in the trees right by the parking lot. So it is a 3-2 ball game suddenly. Gilkey continues his mastery of Mulholland. Getting well over 400 against him for his career. And now Husky blasts one to left center. Off the tippy top of the wall, and Husky just now is getting to second base.
Well, Husky went into the home run trot, never dreaming that that one would stay in the park, but stay in the park it did. He's now 3 for 3. He came in, as we told you up the top of the show, with prodigious numbers against Terry Mulholland, and Mulholland's leaving some fastballs up and out over the plate. Husky is right now in his home run trot, and then realizing that it stayed in the park, he had to hustle it up to get into second with his second double and third hit.
Boy, we've seen 3 Mets just kind of rolling around first base in this game. They're not hitting well enough to do that. This is not a team that scores 9 runs a game.
Everett's got to get Husky over here. He failed to do it in the second inning, and you've got to believe, representing the tying run, Bobby Valentine is going to force him to bunt it here. And Turk Wendell getting loosened up in a hurry.
Cubs pitching coach trying to see if Mulholland can swerve out of the inning somehow. Runner at second, nobody out, and he pops up Everett, who is also not running hard, by the way, and back goes Sanchez to grab it.
Well, there's been a couple of very poor at-bats by Carl Everett from the right side here today, both times leaving Husky out at second base.
I just don't understand that, though. I mean, the ball is in play. It's not going to get blown foul. It's heading to left center. Might as well run. Ochoa tops the off-speed breaking ball, and a nice play by Sandberg. Had to shuffle it over there in a hurry. That does advance Butch Husky to third base, but there's now 2 down.
Terry makes a good pitch, and Ochoa squibs it off the end of the bat. Sandberg hustling up and gets it there a step ahead of Alex Ochoa. And here comes Phil Regan to talk with Terry Mulholland about Todd Pratt and the fact that he has a real hard time with breaking balls away, and Luis Lopez is in the on-deck circle.
So it'll be a couple of former Phillies facing each other here. Mulholland against Pratt. And a reminder, the Cubs back home tomorrow. That is a 2:20 start when Steve Traxel's on the mound against the Rockies' Jamie Wright. The Rockies and the Braves coming in, and the thing that those teams have in common, they have not lost to the Cubs yet this year. The Cubs are 0-9 combined against those two teams, but remember, all that was back in April when the Cubs started out 0-14.
The Cubs are going to be in pretty good shape against the Rockies this time, although the Rockies and Atlanta 1-2 in the National League in hitting.
The Rockies reeling lately. They've lost 12 of 13. Atlanta is still trying to stave off teams like the Mets and the Marlins and the Expos in the National League East.
Cubs will get their first look at Frank Castillo on Saturday afternoon. He'll be pitching in a Rocky uniform against the Cubs at Wrigley Field. He always had good luck against the Rockies in Colorado.
1-1 to Pratt, just missing the corner. 2-1. Frank, I'm sure, is watching the game right now. He stayed in Chicago. Will join up with his new team when they get to Chicago tomorrow. Pratt breaks his bat and ties the game.
Well, I'm sure that Phil Regan didn't want that from Terry Mulholland. The second run batted in for Todd Pratt, biting the hand that once fed him. The former Cub has driven in his 8th, tied up the ball game at 3. And with first base open, Luis Lopez up. That high fastball on the inner portion is not a real good pitch. Terry tries to cut it inside. Pratt's looking for it.
Now Lopez over to Kevin Ory, and that will end the inning. But 2 runs are in on 3 base hits, including the Gilkey home run. And now, at the end of 6, we are tied at 3. Well, last time Terry Mulholland faced the Mets at Shea, he was done in by their catcher, Todd Hundley. It's another Met catcher named Todd that is doing it to him today. Todd Pratt 2 for 3 with a couple of runs batted in. And I don't know what it is about backup catchers, but the Cubs have been hurt by them a lot lately. Danny Schaefer, remember, had the game-winning hit in the 12th.
Hopelessly devoted to the Cubs. Well, there's a lot of people that are very devoted to them throughout the country. We see them everywhere we go. Many of them with more hope than those folks. And the Cubs are hoping to untie this one.
I'll tell you, there have been, I mean, so many just incredibly cool things about being on this job. And right up there is going on the road and seeing all the Cubs fans everywhere. I mean, at the entrance to the ballpark, at the hotel. It's phenomenal. Fouled away, 1-2 to Terry Mulholland.
And when you're in New York, you'd occasionally like to see a cab driver who knows that they're playing, as opposed to the Yankees and some other American League team, so you can actually get to the right ballpark if you're one Arnold Harris.
Way around.
Playing Terry to hit the ball to right center.
And he hits it to left center. Terry Mulholland is on. Everett flailing at it to cut it off. Mulholland on a little hot streak at the plate. He's got 3 hits in his last 3 starts.
Well, he represents the go-ahead run, and now you head to the top of the order. Or Glanville has hit the ball pretty well. It's 1 for 3 to show for it.
Glanville lives less than an hour away from here, of course, depending on the traffic. Teaneck, New Jersey.
Bullpen up and going for the Mets on this red-hot afternoon.
In the left center, there's Carl Everett. One away, Brian McRae comes to the plate in what is now a 3-3 game.
Center fielder Brian McRae.
San Francisco's got the early lead in Houston, 1-0 at the Astrodome. Astros and the Pirates tied for first in the National League Central. Then it's St. Louis 2 back, Cincinnati 5.5 out, and the Cubs 8.5 back after the win last night.
Butch Husky telling Mark Clark that he's going to play him back of Terry Mulholland.
One ball, one strike to Brian McRae. Brian with the bunt single back in the first, and it scored Doug Glanville from second base.
Just another in a series of amazing plays this year. There is Greg McMichael. He's the one man in the bullpen used to generally get the game to John Franco that's done a nice job. He came over from Atlanta in a very good deal for the Mets.
McRae lifting this one foul. It is now 2-2. Now Mark Clark acquired in a good deal. Ryan Thompson and Reed Cornelius, the 2 guys that they gave up to the Cleveland Indians, and the Indians don't have those guys anymore. Ground ball to third. Alfonso turns it. Double play. In the inning, no runs, 1 hit, no errors, none left. 7th inning stretch in New York. We're tied at 3. You check out the numbers, a 2-5 record. 3 of those losses just this month.
And Turk pitched an inning and a third last night. He gave up a hit, a walk, he fanned a couple, and gave up no runs in relief of Jeremy Gonzalez as Jim Riggleman used Wendell, Tatis, Adams, and Rojas to finish off the Mets. Kirk Wendell coming in a different situation here. He has no lead to protect. The man belongs to Terry Mulholland. That is Lance Johnson at first. And Turk on for the 43rd time. And he has been a busy man. In fact, Kirk Wendell third on the staff in appearances behind Bob Patterson and Mel Rojas.
Good numbers for Alfonso against Turk Wendell.
One of the reasons why Alfonso is fairly tough against Wendell is he's one of those hitters that will go out and get the slider away.
Lance Johnson, your base runner at first for the New York Mets. Cubs hoping to coax a double play ball here from Alfonso.
And now with Mulholland out and Wendell in, that's when you have to watch the stolen base from Lance Johnson. Even with the shin splints, he's stolen 12 and caught 7 times, however.
Strike poured in there from Turk Wendell. Bottenfield now joining Ramon Tatis in the Cub bullpen. Mulholland can't win this game. He can lose it, however, if this runner comes around. The pickoff. Lance Johnson was straying too far away. Sanchez back to Wendell, who will tag him out. Boy, the Mets continue to kill themselves on the bases, and the Cubs, well, they execute every rundown play. I mean, they've just, every time the Mets try to hand them something, the Cubs have very gladly taken it in this series.
Goes 1, 3, 6, and Turk Wendell with the coup de grace. And also he tagged him.
That's French
and
for
when you think about a pickoff, that's really a pickoff.
Now the slider gets Alfonso down to an 0-2 count. 2 down, nobody on.
This has been a fine base running series for the Mets.
Slider just missing. Well, we were talking about the Mets not being known for their base running, even back when they were winning. I still say it's a remarkable thing. Dave Kingman leading the team in stolen bases the 1 year, Wayne Garrett the other. This is a team that has stolen some bases this year, but they've taken some chances, and they've just, I mean, plainly stated, they've made some dumb plays.
Turk just got away with a hanging slider, and Alfonso fortunately fouled it back.
Fastball up and in, 2-2.
Now you should see the slider again, and you want to keep it quite obviously low and away. He's got a good shot at getting it.
Still 2 balls, 2 strikes, and looking ahead to the Cub 8th. Sosa, Grace, and Sandberg coming up.
And now Terry Mulholland will officially get a no decision. Another no decision. Although he pitched reasonably well today.
Popped him up. And it travels out into center field. Brian McRae to retire the side. And the Mets self-destruct before our eyes again. Thankfully, the Cubs and the Mets are still tied. 3-3 going to the 8th. And this is not an easy part of the order. Sosa, Grace, and Sandberg coming up to face him.
Well, McMichael has an unbelievable amount of decisions for a man who hasn't started a game. He's 6-7, a wonderful ERA of 2.66, on for the 43rd time. He's not overpowering. He has a great changeup, and so you have to wait back and try to wait for the off-speed stuff. Last year with Atlanta, McMichael was very durable. In fact, he appeared in 73 games, 3.22 ERA, 5-3 record. So he was a pretty good pitcher. And another good trade for Joe McIlvaine, bringing him over here, where he's done a fine job out of the pen.
Sammy Sosa 1 out of 3 on Balloon Animals Day at the ballpark. What's he making there? Sosa starts it out 1-0. Oh, that's nice. Look at that. He made his.
It's an inadvertent hat shot.
He made his kid a hat. That's great. Great play there. Alexander from his knee. Wow.
Boy, that was just a wonderful effort by Manny Alexander, and he appears to be hurt. And he is limping, but what an effort by Alexander. This is a sure base hit, or so you would think. But Alexander gets to it, and from his knees throws him out, and he might have extended that knee as he pivoted to make the throw.
And remember, Stoney, that's the knee that had the torn cartilage in it. He had some arthroscopic surgery just about a month and a half ago. It does look like that same right knee.
And I would think that Bobby Valentine would go to Ray Ordonez. And this play was certainly reminiscent of many of the beautiful plays at short by Ordonez. And there's Ordonez loosening up. It's to me like he might be coming into this. I don't think Alexander is going to be able to continue. and Ray Ordonez will indeed come in. But what an effort by Manny Alexander.
Well,
that's the moment saving McMichael.
That's the play that Manny Alexander has always been able to make, and the one that he's loved to make. He knows that's going to make the highlight reel. And going to his right, he is literally as good as any shortstop in the National League. Going to his left is another story, but you'll see here as he smothers it and then has the presence of mind. He's got a great arm, too.
Well, I think because he used that knee to actually pivot and push off, that's what gave him the problem. So he gets a tremendous hand, well-deserved from the crowd. And they certainly don't lose anything defensively with Ray Ordonez coming into the game.
In the minor leagues, Steve, Manny Alexander used to always play a step or two towards second base. And the reason for that was he wanted to be able to make that a highlight reel play in the hole. The coaches would tell him, you got to get over a little more. And Manny would kind of wave him away, saying, no, I know I can get there. And, I mean, the bottom line was he wanted to make it look sweet. And now he knows the major league level, it's more than just cosmetics. You just got to be able to get to the ball and stop it. But that's a play that Alexander loves to make. And unfortunately, it cost him there, as it looks like he might have tore up that knee again. One out. Here's Mark Grace.
Well, Grace hasn't done real well against McMichael, but none of that factors into this particular at bat.
At the knees for a strike, 1-1. Gracie with a couple of doubles today. But he also banged into that double play, swinging at the first pitch with 2 on, nobody out back in the third. Down the line in left. That is a foul ball.
One of the reasons McMichael is so tough is the herky-jerky motion. And that changeup comes out of the same spot as a fastball, only you can't pick it up out of his hand. And that's the beauty of the changeup if you throw it correctly. Use the same release point as a fastball. It comes out with the same type of spin. And the arm velocity is the same of the fastball, except the ball doesn't get there, and guys usually swing over the top.
Grace hopping over that one, 2-2. Three tie. The Cubs have out hit the Mets 9-8. A foul ball, says first base umpire Mark Hirschbeck.
Protect against the double. Husky is over toward the line, but Alfonso is not. And Mark Grace on occasion will go right down that third base line, especially if McMichael tries to sink one away from it.
The hot shot. It eats up Husky. McMichael dragging the foot across the bag has got him.
Well, Husky not known for the great glove, but he's able to stay in front of this. And then he took his time, and that's one of the keys here. He knows he's got some time with Mark Grace going down the line. He waits for McMichael, who does keep the foot on the bag.
Your look ahead to the bottom of the 8th inning. Husky will be in the mix. It'll be 3, 4, 5 in the Met order. Gilkey, Husky, and Everett. Line, Sandberg watches that one to float right in there at the knees. Sandberg nothing out of 3 this afternoon. Astros have tied it up with San Francisco, 1-1 in the 3rd inning. Sandberg going down to hack away at that one, and the throw across from Ordonez in plenty of time to get Sandberg. That's the inning. 3 up, 3 away, and to the bottom of the 8th now it's Shea, all tied up at 3. Mets, Gilkey, Husky, and Everett. And Gilkey tomahawks one, but foul.
And Turk hung another slider. This one, fortunately, a little too far inside. And Gilkey, who has started to swing the bat better, got around a little too quickly.
And that's Gilkey's history too, Stoney. When he heats up, I mean, he gets very hot all at once, and he clips that one foul off of Tyler Houston. Gilkey at one point this year went through a 3 for 46 slump. But this is a guy that once had 3 hits in a single inning. Believe it or not, in a minor league game, that's pretty tough to do.
Tatis and Adams throwing in the pen. You got to believe they're getting ready for Olerud and Hundley.
Wendell blows it by him. Well, he came with the power stuff there. Bernard Gilkey, who hit a long home run in the 6th, strikes out here in the 8th.
Turk drops down sidearm and throws the heat by him. You don't see Turk do that too often. And I think when he dropped down sidearm, Gilkey was looking for the slider, because when Turk has gone sidearm, more times than not he throws the slider. It didn't get there, but the fastball did.
Now the beard coming in nicely for Turk. It's got that Chia Pet look to it right now.
It's always a good look.
They told him on the plane, you got a long way to go before you're Jim Kern. Offering it, the slider in the dirt. Butch Husky behind 0-2, and Turk has looked very good. Right after him on 2 strikes, and down goes Husky, who had been 3 for 3.
You watch the station, you'll love the website, WGN TV on the web. Log on and access everything from up-to-the-minute sports scores to Tom Skilling's national weather and forecast. We've got listings of your favorite programs and other special features with streaming audio and great downloads. Wow. Get interactive with WGN TV on the web. Just go to www.wgntv.com.
Everett to right field, Sammy Sosa. With a, what was that, a streaming download or something?
It looked exactly like that.
And Carl Everett is the 3rd out of the inning. Wendell gets through the 3, 4, 5 part of the order. No problems at all. On to the 9th. We are tied at 3. On to the 9th inning, and what's that fellow dining on there, do you figure?
Looks delectable, whatever it is.
He's got a Portland Sea Dogs hat. So he watches Tyler Houston against Greg McMichael. The Portland Sea Dogs, that's where our new hitting coach was last year for a little while. Double-A for the Florida Marlins. Jeff Pentland was a hitting coach there, and then for the Florida Marlins, when they made the switch last year, Latchman out, John Bowles in.
There is Jeff Pentland, who joined the Cubs here in New York.
That might be one of his first pupils. Tyler Houston has not looked like he's in sync yet since coming back off the DL.
Well, you miss as much time as he missed, it really becomes tough. But he's a good low ball hitter, and McMichael a low ball pitcher.
Chops at that one, a slow roller. And Lopez shovels it right from the glove to Butch Husky.
Well, it looks good, but it was a much easier play if you just take it out of the glove and toss it over there. You don't have a speed merchant going down the line, but Lopez does get the job done, although he risks throwing it over the head of Husky with this flip. He had all kinds of time, as you see.
Well, you talked about Houston being a low ball hitter. That ball was almost in the dirt.
John Franco loosening up in the pen. Norrie's had a good day.
There is John Franco.
Just in case Jim Riggleman might be thinking about using Dave Clark, I believe John Franco is getting loosened up.
I would say he and Randall Kirk Myers probably about the best lefty relievers that this game has seen in the last 10 years or so.
Yes, sirree. Both very consistent. And they were once traded for one another. At the time, Franco with Cincinnati. By the way, a lot of people don't know he originally was a product of the Los Angeles Dodgers organization, as was Sid Fernandez. They were both traded away very early in their careers.
John Wetland came out of there. Too bad they don't have any prospects ever.
Take a look at Franco and Myers behind Dennis Eckersley, and now Eckersley, the leader among active pitchers, with Lee Arthur Smith retiring.
Ori fouls that 1-2-2. We should say hello to Randy Myers. He told me a couple months ago when I bumped into him that he watches us all the time on WGN following the Cubs.
And we also follow his progress. He was a wonderful member of this ball club, did a great job with the Cubs, and certainly added a little life to that clubhouse. And you can always use a little life.
Smith hanging it up. You figure that guy is automatic entry into the Hall of Fame?
5 years from the day that he hung it up. Yes, sir. He had a magnificent career.
There is ball 4 to Kevin Ori. But just as we talk about a great reliever, a guy that would come on and clamp down in the 9th inning, Greg McMichael allows the walk. Ray Sanchez will be the hitter, and we'll get a pinch runner for Kevin Ori.
Jose Hernandez. Well, Jim Riggleman knows or suspects that if he goes to the left-handed pinch hitters here, either Hansen or Clark, but he's going to get Franco. So he's got Clark now in the on-deck circle. And Ray Sanchez has a run driven in today on a double.
Ooh, took a big cut. Ray has been hitting very well of late. 14 for his last 30 at bats. And boy, I guess we blinked and missed it, but suddenly Ray Sanchez's batting average is in the 270s.
And if the Cubs do score, it's going to be Mel Rojas. He's loosening up in the pen. If not, it'll most likely be Terry Adams, who is right beside him.
Cubs took a 2-0 lead back in the first inning. The exciting play there, Doug Glanville coming in to score from second base on a bunt. Lifted foul, 2 strikes a count. Cub lead was 3-1 going to the bottom of the 6th as you check out Rojas and Adams, the 2 right-handers.
You know, you're on the road, and I'm just kind of surprised Dave Hansen hitting .500 against McMichael's not in the game. Now it could be that Sanchez gets a base hit here. But you know, John Franco has sometimes more trouble with left-handers than right-handers. And so even if you put in Hansen and they bring in Franco, it's not necessarily a disadvantage.
Are you surprised that Hansen hasn't played more, period, this year?
No, I think you have to, most of the time, turn it over to Kevin Ori because he's doing a pretty good job and you want to see how he develops.
Tapped foul, still 0-2.
And there you look at Dave Hansen, who has done a terrific job when he has been called on, either off the bench or the occasional start at third base. Not much to go on in the Hansen-Franco matchup. Only faced him one time.
The 0-2. They pitch out. Nothing happening. 1 ball, 2 strikes.
Now on the other side of the coin, Dave Clark is 3 for 6 lifetime against Franco. So as we told you, he will have more problems with the left-hander because it takes away his change and it takes away that little screwball that he likes to throw.
Fly ball to left field. Should be the second out of the inning. Gilkey drifting back. So 2 away, and it will be Dave Clark. And Dave Clark, who had a pinch hit home run here at Shea back in April. Let's see if he can rev it up again.
Well, Clark hitting .375, 3 for 8 against McMichael. Need some late heroics from Dave Clark, and he's provided some of that this year. He's just been terrific off the bench.
Double-digit RBI total as a pinch hitter. Out in front of that one, Dave Clark. The most pinch hit RBIs by a Cub in 22 years.
Credit Turk Wendell with a great job coming in relief of Terry Mulholland. 1 2/3 innings with a couple of strikeouts, and that was it. One of the better jobs by Turk Wendell.
Again, Clark fooled, and he's behind 0-2.
And there's a look at Turk. One of the most likable men on this ball club. He is just a delight. Great attitude and a fearless guy.
I'm going to get the privilege of co-hosting a charity event with Turk on Sunday over at Harry's Restaurant on Kinsey. If you want to show up, it's the Cubs wives that are putting on a raffle and an auction. It's going to be a great time Sunday night. 1 ball, 2 strikes to Dave Clark.
Pretty good stop there by Todd Pratt. Over 26,000 here today. So in a very early game, pretty good attendance for the Mets.
Well, a lot of the attention again this year in New York, understandably, is in the Bronx with the Yankees. The Yankees coming off the World Series championship. And all kinds of controversy is always over there. Hideki Arabu coming over. That's been exciting.
But they're not exactly knocking him dead at the gate either when you look at their season attendance, considering what they've accomplished the last year and a half or so. And that way is the Bronx.
Go ahead man at first. That's Hernandez. 3-3 tie here in the 9th. There goes Hernandez, and down goes Clark. Greg McMichael with a couple of nice innings of relief work here for the Mets, and the New Yorkers have a chance to win it in the bottom of the 9th. They'll come up with 6, 7, 8 in the batting order. We're back after this. Here comes Phil Regan. And
Todd Pratt for the moment's in the on-deck circle. That's why Bob Patterson's loosening up in the bullpen, because I don't believe there's any way Pratt's going to hit. As you look at Franco, pinch home runs, and the Mets leading the major leagues in that department.
Matt Franco, a one-time Chicago Cub, was signed by the famous Spider Jorgensen, the Cubs scout who signed Mark Grace, among many others.
Outfield very deep for Franco. They give him the entire left field line, and they're deep all the way around. You can live with a single. You have to cut off the double. And there is one of the most feared hitters in the league, Hundley.
Franco starts out with a 1-ball, no strike count. Terry Adams, of course, was brilliant for the first, about 6 weeks of the season. It's been a struggle lately. Franco to left field. Doug Glanville fighting the glare of the sun, and 1 out.
Well, with nobody on, Todd Pratt is indeed going to hit for himself. Kind of a surprising move for Bobby Valentine, right-hander against right-hander. But here he is, and he's done quite a job for them.
Two for 3 today means he is 9 for 22 in the major leagues this year. Socks that one foul. Pratt was a 300 hitter down at AAA for the Norfolk Tides. He had 9 homers.
Well, if the Cubs do keep it alive, they'll head to the top of the order in the top of the 10th.
Pratt does it again. Base hit right center. Unbelievable. The backup catcher. Well, if it's not Danny Schaefer, it's Brad Ausmus. If it's not Brad Ausmus, it's Todd Hundley. If it's not Todd Hundley, it's Todd Pratt this week, as the Cubs just keep running into hot-hitting catchers.
Well, it's Carlos Baerga, which means that Jim Riggleman will probably bring in Patterson to turn him around to his weak side, but he's waiting for Baerga to be announced. And now he is announced as the crafty Bobby Valentine put him into the on-deck circle and then finally pointed to Bruce Fleming, who now announces Baerga. And here comes Jim Riggleman to announce Bob Patterson.
3-3 game, bottom of the 9th inning. Todd Pratt, the runner at first, following his 3rd single of the afternoon. And Riggleman does want the lefty. Cubs looking for their 40th victory of the season. But first, they've got to make sure they don't get their 56th loss. Patterson's going to come on. 1 on, 1 out, 9th inning. We'll come right back.
Does indeed cost the Mets, but Baerga from the right side has been not real good at 169.
So the former Cleveland Indian against Bob Patterson, and the last time he faced Patterson, he homered off him.
See, the advantage for the Cubs of having Pratt at first is Mark Grace can play behind him. If you put somebody at first who can run, then you have to play on the bag. So Mark Grace with a better angle for a ground ball hit to the right side.
You saw Terry Mulholland watching on as a very interested observer in the Cub dugout. I love that about Terry Mulholland. I mean, it would be great for ratings if he went in there and joined the broadcast watching on WGN, but he wants to be out there rooting on his teammates.
He is really one of the great guys to have on a ball club for everything he does besides throwing the baseball.
Baerga shoots it over to Sandberg. Nicely turned. And they get only 1.
Good play by Pratt as he makes sure that Sanchez does not complete the double play. He took him out very well on that slide. And because it was close enough to the bag, it goes as a clean play. And watch it again. Baerga to the right side. And Pratt bearing down on Sanchez. Now that could be interpreted as interference. But Angel Hernandez didn't call it. There was no way that Pratt could get to the bag there. But they call it a clean play.
The pinch hitter will be Chicago's very own number 9, Todd Hundley. He is in the top 10 in home runs in the National League. And he's got good numbers against Patterson. Pops it up. That'll drift foul. 1-1. Jim Riggleman hoping to see the 10th inning. And it's Patterson having to retire Hundley, who's got 20 homers, 57 runs knocked in.
Hundley against the Cubs has been otherworldly. And you're going to have to hit one almost out of the ballpark to score Baerga from first. Because the outfield is as deep as you can get. You can certainly hit one in the gap. It's still going to be tough to score him.
Slashes that one to right field, and it drops. Baerga will hustle to third. Pinch single.
A faster man might score on that ball, but no chance for Baerga. So it goes the opposite way. You have to play him very deep. Sammy had a long way to go. Baerga easily goes to third, and you would be thinking about the winning run here, but not with Baerga at first.
Sammy raced over to grab it. And Ray Ordonez will be up for the first time. Ordonez has been up one time in his career against Bob Patterson, and he tripled off him.
Well, something to bear in mind here is that Ordonez is a terrific bunter. And that is a possibility. Jose Hernandez is even with the bag now. You don't want him to back up too much.
Force play would be on at second base to get the Cubs out of the inning. 1 ball, no strikes. Ordonez came on when Manny Alexander hurt his knee. Pressure's on Tyler Houston here as well. Anything down in the dirt, he has got to keep it in front of him or the ball game's over. Popped it up. Who's going to get it? Mark Grace comes marching in, and he grabs it to send us to extra innings. And that ball kind of lofted around in the wind a little bit. Looked like a ping pong ball in the lottery machine right there for a moment, but Grace staying with it, and we go to inning number 10, tied at 3. And the new pitcher is the aforementioned other Franco, the slightly more famous one. This is John.
John Franco has been terrific this year. 1-1, 2.87 ERA, on for the 38th time. Obviously, he will not pick up a save today. He has given up just 1 home run in 37 2/3 innings, walked just 11, fanning 33. Bobby Valentine knows that having the home field advantage, if you can get through an inning or two with your closer, you've got a pretty good shot at it. And the Cubs, unfortunately, have been woeful in extra innings. 1-6 this year. But that one win came on the road. So they've got to do it against one of the tougher relief pitchers around in extra innings. The Mets 4-4. But they're 2-0 at home in extra innings.
John Franco, the New York native, grew up in Bensonhurst. Played his college ball at St. John's. Before that, went to Lafayette High School. School that produced Sandy Koufax, among others. It's another pretty good lefty. Here is Doug Glanville. 1 out of 4 for the afternoon. First pitch swinging in the chopper. Franco to Franco. Oh, close play.
Well, I can't believe Matt Franco didn't take it himself, because it was a much tougher play this way with John Franco hustling over there. Matt Franco was only 3 steps from the bag, yet he decided to go to John, and John is saying, hey, you're younger, you're faster, you're bigger, and I'm old. Make the play. Boy, I mean, he could have beat him easily, but he made it a bang-bang play by throwing it to Franco.
Wow.
Arnie's lost a lot closer photos than that at the track. Well, John is out of breath, and hopefully that'll work to the Cubs' advantage.
Brian McRae has been on base a couple of times today. That one fades away. It's 1-0. Cubs haven't scored since the 4th inning.
Well, now Franco, who loves to keep the ball low and away to the right-handers, probably has to use a little more of the plate. And Franco doesn't do it with overpowering stuff. He does it with great movement on his fastball.
Two balls and a strike to Brian McRae. Right in there, 2-2.
Well, let's see if Brian goes with that ball that's probably going to be that real good sinker away from it.
3 balls, 2 strikes. Sammy Sosa would be next. The tapper, and here comes Ordonez. What a play! What a play by Ray Ordonez.
Well, you see it every time that he's inserted into the ball game or starts the game. You'll see a highlight reel effort. We've seen 2 of them today. One by Manny Alexander that took him out of the game, and this one by Ray Ordonez. Another highlight reel, bare hand, throw in the same motion play, much like Edgardo Alfonzo yesterday. So as bad as the Mets have been on the bases, that's how good they've been in the infield. What a play by Ordonez.
It's been around 4 years since Ordonez hopped a cyclone fence in Buffalo, New York, and defected to this country from Cuba. He broke in the Independent League, the Northern League, playing for Mike Veck's team, the St. Paul Saints. And the Mets were able to sign him, and boy, he has been about the flashiest shortstop we have seen in the National League.
Sammy's had the ball out of the infield once in the 2 games. And so this is a good time for Sammy to get something middle in and drive it. Franco keeps the ball down. Sammy hits the ball down. It should be a decent matchup for him.
Again, the ball stays in the infield. And a quick and easy inning for John Franco. Top of the order is down in order. It'll be the top of the order and the bottom of the 10th for New York. We're tied at 3. Off the bases here as a Lone Ranger is still hanging out here at Shea.
Still wearing that jacket in 95-degree temperatures.
It's remarkable. Well,
he's a thin Ranger at this point. Programmed enthusiasm here in New York. The only time they really make a lot of noise is when the electronic scoreboard tells them make some noise.
And as soon as they take it off the scoreboard, it's like being at the opera. Actually, I'm just assuming that. I've never been to an opera, quite honestly. Here's the strike. And the Mets with that 2-run 6th inning. That's why, in part, we're sitting around in the 10th watching a 3-3 game. Drilled to right center. There goes Brian McRae. Won't get it down in front of him. That's trouble because here comes Gilkey.
Well, normally that probably would have been caught, but the outfield having to play a little deeper, trying to protect against a 2-base hit, was overly deep for Alfonzo, who doesn't have the best power, and that one dropped in front of McRae. Alfonzo with decent, if not great speed, 8 stolen bases. He's been caught 5 times, however.
Now Gilkey looks down to Cookie Rojas. So what do you want here? Do you want me to lay it down, or do you want me to take my 7 for 10 against Bottenfield and swing away?
I would be absolutely astounded if he laid it down.
Sure enough, taking, and there's the strike.
Ramon Tatis throwing in the pen just in case Bobby Valentine somewhere in this inning decides to trot out John Olerud.
The wind has died down for the moment here at Shea. Slider away, 1-1. Gilkey in the 6th inning. Off of Terry Mulholland, who started the Met comeback. As he absolutely blistered one. This gets up and over the makeshift bleachers out there and left. Nine home runs for Gilkey this year, but only 44 runs batted in, and that embarrassing .213 batting average.
I don't believe you'll see hit and run here, not with Gilkey and his 62 strikeouts. Jeff Bottenfield Field just to be safe, keeping Alfonso close.
Bernard Gilkey was huge in late inning situations for the Mets last year. Hit .317 for them overall. He's plummeted 104 points here in '97. Nice pitch from Bottenfield, 1 and 2.
Well, Bernard has grounded into 6 double plays. He does have pretty good speed. But if you get the ball on the ground, you can turn it.
Another double play candidate on deck in Butch Husky. Poked foul. We're still at a ball, 2 strikes. The producer and director and a very good sport. All of that for the Cubs on WGN. That's Arnie Harris. Associate producer Mandy Cohen. And Kathy Grimmie with us again on this road trip. Special thanks to the entire crew today. Drilled but foul.
Well, now he speeded up Gilkey's bat on the inside fastball. And you would think that Kent would go to the hard slider low and away. He's ahead 1 and 2. He could afford to miss with a pitch. You don't need the plate. You got to figure Gilkey is going to be a little over anxious, even though he's a veteran. Keep it low and away with the hard slider. You might get the ground ball or the strikeout.
Slider too far away. 2 balls, 2 strikes. Giants have a 2-1 lead on the Astros in the 6th inning down at the Dome. Astros right now in a first place tie in the Central with Pittsburgh. They play tonight against the Reds. Another slider away. Another nice block by Houston. Now the count runs full.
And now the question is, do you run with Alfonso with a guy up who is prone to strike out? And Mookie Wilson, who's done a lot of running in these situations himself during the course of his career, with a word for Alfonso. Good time for a quick move to first, but Alfonso doesn't have much of a lead.
Alfonso does have 8 steals this year. There is that quick move, and Alfonso back.
I'd run with him if you're Bobby Valentine. A little pressure on Tyler Houston.
Unbearably hot day. Tyler Houston has been down in that crouch for, well, it's a 3-hour game, so about an hour and a half he's been wearing that catcher's mask and all that gear. Alfonso going, and a good thing. Sanchez barely gets him. Ball was probably hit too slowly to turn to, regardless of whether or not Alfonso is running. But now you've got a runner at second base, just 1 out for Butch Husky.
Good slider, 3 and 2. It's in a perfect spot, low and away, and Ray has only 1 play. Now I would figure that you'd walk Husky in this situation, but you have Everett, who is a switch hitter and who had 3 hits from the left side yesterday in the on-deck circle. Still think you'd like to set up 2, but we'll see what Jim Riggleman has in mind. Husky has a hard time with sliders low and away. Anything up, he just crushes, however.
The wind is blowing in at Shea Stadium now. For most of the game, it had been blowing out. Jim Riggleman looking over his options. Phil Regan there next to him.
His options become limited if you get one up to Husky.
Winning run at second base. We're tied at 3 in the 10th inning. Right down the chute, and Bottenfield again establishing that first strike. Looped foul into the booth right next door. You almost had that. We're within a good 8 feet of it.
Fortunately, well away from me.
We need Harry's net on the road here. Would have had that one.
Husky not one of the real strikeout men on this team. However, we have seen him many times expand that strike zone low and away, and you've got 4 pitches to make one good slider off the plate low and away.
Steve Phillips just went and got that baseball, the new general manager for the Mets, and he tossed it down into the crowd. Up the middle, that's trouble. Around comes a runner, and the ball game's over.
What could possess you to throw a high fastball to a high fastball hitter on 0-2? Well, it cost you the game, and the Cubs will go home with a split of the series. Unbelievable pitch selection. Watch it again. Butch Husky with a fastball up in the zone. You're 0-2. You have 4 pitches to make a good slider pitch, and it cost you the ball game.
Now the Cubs, for the second time in 3 afternoons, have lost late on an 0-2 pitch from a reliever. Bill Spires did it to him just the other day. Bobby Valentine, a happy New York Met manager. Husky ends up with a 4-hit afternoon, and the Cubs fail to hang on to a 3-1 lead. They lose in 10 this afternoon. Back with a final comment right after this. You just saw it, and we'll show it to you again. Butch Husky. What do they say in real estate? Location, location, location. And that was a bad location. A fat fastball, and Butch Husky drives it into center field to win it for the Mets in 10. There's your final 4-3. And our next telecast on WGN will be tomorrow afternoon. Harry's back in the booth joining Steve at Wrigley. It's the Rockies, and the Cubs coverage begins at 2 o'clock with the leadoff man show. Well, we sure hope you enjoyed the broadcast today, if not the final, which again was the Mets 4 and the Cubs 3. For Steve Stone and producer-director Arnie Harris, this is Josh Lewin. Try to have a great day, everybody.
Chicago Cubs baseball on WGN. Brought to you by Budweiser, the king of beers, who reminds you friends know when to say when. The Stars of Chicagoland, your local Chrysler Plymouth dealer. Ameritech, your link to better communication. Pepsi, Generation Next. Montgomery Ward. Nissan, your local Nissan store, encourages you to test drive the all-new 1998 Altima today. And by Southwest Airlines, with fares so low, you have the freedom to go places.